gentlemen, to the third part of the series in terms of recession-proof your sales. So the job and the purpose of this show and this series is to help salespeople take themselves to the next level and to protect themselves and to thrive in the coming recession. My old mentor told me that to be a high performer, to be a success, it's not so much the skills that you acquire, but it's the person that you become that will determine your success. And the goal of this show is to help salespeople in all shapes and forms in terms of health, mindset, skills, purpose, to really become the high performers and to become the best version of themselves. So my guest today, I'm really excited to have this guest today. Our guest today is a VP of marketing of Vidyard. So they're a software company that provides online video platforms to companies and is used by a whole host of professionals within a wide range of functions like sales, marketing, HR, and corporate communications. His career spans over 23 years, both in systems engineering and marketing. And he's worked for some of the biggest and most well-known brands in both the tech and consulting sectors. So companies like Sybase, Deloitte, and BlackBerry, just to name a few. Tyler is passionate about how people in the B2B world can create more human connection, something that I'm also deeply passionate about. And he's a tireless evangelist for the power of video in your business. As if that wasn't enough, he even has time to host his own successful podcast show called Creating Connections. So please join me in welcoming the winner of over 9 awards in marketing, including the Telly Award, B2B Marketing Innovators Award, B2B Killer Content Award, and he's one of the fearless 50 marketers. Please welcome Mr. Tyler Lessard. Tyler, welcome to the show and thank you.
Well, thank you so very much for the wonderful introduction. It's truly great to be here to share some of the things that I'm seeing out there in the market today. And I love this topic of how to not only recession-proof yourself as a seller, but I think more importantly, fundamentally change, evolve, and adapt how it is that you how you communicate, how you connect, how you do business in this new world, because it's not just the recession. This is a new digital first world we're in. So it's very, very exciting to be here. Thank you for having me.
Really excited to discuss this topic. And there's so much that I want to get through today, because for sellers especially, for a lot of salespeople, video is probably not as comfortable for them. Maybe the younger generation, it would be for clear reasons. But more importantly, for a lot of the buyers, and I have some stats, and there's a lot of stats out there about the average demographic of the buyer, they may not be as comfortable with video as some of the sellers out there. So really, really excited to have you on the show to discuss this. So one thing I really want to get an understanding from first is just your history. And I'm always interested in the history of the people I talk to, because you started off in systems engineering, if I got that correctly. So how did you get into marketing? How did you get into video and just becoming so passionate about it?
That is true. I studied systems design engineering in the University of Waterloo, and much of my early career was focused on technology. I did database design. I was a software developer, and I started my primary career actually as a software developer at BlackBerry back many, many years ago. And what was interesting was I quickly learned in my role that I was an okay software developer, but I was more adept in technology to others, discussing ideas and strategies behind how it could be used, and brainstorming, again, new creative ways to use the technology to solve business problems. And I was much better at that ideation than I was actually coding the bits and bytes. Realized I was a terrible coder after not that long with some amazing people at that company. So long story short, I ended up moving over into our developer relations team and worked with third-party developers who were building the very first mobile applications on BlackBerries. And this was before there was even an iPhone or an Android platform. So it was a really exciting time. And I got to use my understanding of technology, but to work with other companies to help them understand how to build great apps, how to use the platform in interesting ways. And it, in hindsight, really became a lot more product marketing, of evangelism, of customer service. And those were the things I really enjoyed and thrived at. And that was really the start to a long career after that that kept moving more and more towards the business and marketing ends of what I do.
Right, super interesting. And by the way, I have an engineer coming into marketing. It's not surprising to me because I have a bit of a background in marketing, and people think it's all creative. Creative is just one dimension of marketing. Now you have to be super specific about how you approach marketing. So not surprising there. Let's get into the video elements. So talk to us about video. Why has it become and not necessarily Zoom or Zoom or video conferencing, because we know why. I mean, because of COVID, etc. That's basically our main way of communicating. But why video in terms of videos being sent in email? Why has that become such an important thing? And why is it that buyers seem to be responding to it more and making it more successful for sellers to use?
Yeah, so to provide a little bit more background on sort of this modality that we're talking about here, I've been, again, here at Vidyard for over 6 years now. And the early part of my time here and how we worked with businesses was focused on hosted video content. So videos that were going out on your websites, in your marketing campaigns, on your social channels. And we, 100% focused on supporting marketing teams and IT organizations that were expanding their use of online video. And, over the years, we saw some great success, and we found more and more businesses that were finding just, video was becoming easier and easier to produce. So they were doing more of it. It was becoming less expensive, less intimidating. And they also found that in today's age where people are consuming more and more content online and relying on that more so than, booking a meeting with sales and getting custom demos and things like that, right? People were expecting to learn about products and services online. That there was this huge surge in the use of educational video content across every industry, really, but particularly those in B2B, where they've got longer cycles with customers. And again, they have a lot of complex ideas they need to explain. So we've seen that happening for years, where a lot of companies are, again, creating videos to explain topics, to educate their audience, to show what they do, to share the stories of their customers. And it was traditionally very much a marketing-centric medium. But then fast forward to the last couple of years, and the barrier to creating and sharing a video is completely gone right now, right? Like, we all have webcams, we all have smartphones with 1080p or 4K recording, and the tools are out there now to easily share a video with somebody without having to go through a lot of gymnastics or unnatural acts. And so as that's become more accessible, people are finding new ways to use it. And one that we've seen to be extremely popular and successful is in sales. Yeah. And this idea that as a seller, right, the big part of my value prop as a seller is my ability to build relationships, to communicate with our prospective buyers and customers, to, ultimately earn their trust and, help them solve problems. And you say, if you believe that that's your role as a salesperson, then you have to step back and think, in this digital age where I'm not meeting people face to face, how can I best do those things, right? How can I best educate them? How can I earn their trust? How can I, clearly communicate and connect with them? And of course, video is the next best thing to being there in person. And we rely on live Zoom calls or WebEx or whatever it happens to be when we get those few and far between opportunities to, connect with a customer. But what about all those moments between? Right? Because most sellers know you end up doing a lot of back and forth emails, and then you have that like one big call that you're excited about. And then after that call, you're back to emails and things like that. And, we say, well, why wouldn't you during those other times record and send a quick video to explain your message, to keep your face top of mind, to keep that relationship going? And that's what we're seeing a lot of today. And again, the big driver for that is the tools to do this. Of course, I represent Vidyard, who has a tool to do that, so I'm very familiar with it. But there are others as well that literally make it as easy as sending an email, right? You hit record, you record your message either with your webcam or a screen share, and when it's done, you can send it via email, and you're not attaching a video file, you're attaching a link to watch that video, and it's automatically hosted up on a page. So again, it's just become so easy, and you start to think, well, as a sales rep, why wouldn't I send videos to my clients? Because it is so much more personal, it earns their trust. and so much more human. And I think those things are more important than ever.
Yeah, so that's super interesting. Let's start to deconstruct that then, because in the let's start looking at all the different stages of the sales cycle, right? So you obviously have the introduction, you have the warmer, you have the questions that you start asking, you have the value demonstration, you've got proof of concept. So where in that whole sales process do you have, because you have a ton of data and insights and best practices. So if we talk about just say new business for now, because on the account management side of things, there's a whole other area we could probably discuss, but for new business, walk us through kind of what kind of videos are you seeing are, when is it best to use certain videos? How long should they be? Let's talk about the anatomy almost of a good video in the sales process. Well,
it's such a great point, because there are, when you think about it and you work through it, there's actually so many different points in that, customer life cycle, pre-sale, post-sale, that it makes sense, because really it's all about, again, any communication you're delivering to that customer. If you can make it more personal, more human, more valuable to them by showing rather than just telling, there's an opportunity in video to improve your results. And we're seeing it in a few specific areas that have the most impact right now. The first is for actual prospecting, when being out there trying to find new sales opportunities. So whether you yourself, Steve or David or Jenny or any of you watching are actually doing your own outbound prospecting, or maybe you have sales reps that do, they'll probably agree when I say, people are ignoring the emails, regular old emails more than ever. Right? They're getting more and they're ignoring more. For a lot of people, connect rates on the phone are way down. They've always been low for cold calling, but they're even down more that people are at home and so on. And it's becoming really just a lot more difficult to break through the noise and get somebody to respond. And so we're seeing a lot of reps, when they're outbound prospecting, sending a quick video to introduce themselves, to explain, why it is that they're reaching out, and to then quickly tease on how it is that they can help solve a problem. And then often ending that video by saying, instead of, hey, can we book 30 minutes to talk more, by saying, could I send you another quick video to show you a little bit more of what I'm talking about, or something like that, right?
Right.
And by the very nature of doing that, and they usually send them via email. So an email goes and it's got the big thumbnail image of your video. So you show up in their inbox and you're like waving or something like that. And when they click play, you want that video to be, if it's for prospecting, you want it to be less than a minute, right? You want it to be quick and to the point. You want to let your personality and body language come through, right? Just like I'm doing right now, right? I'm a hand waver. I'm a high energy guy. So I do a lot of my videos like this, right? It lets that person get to know me very quickly. And again, just by the nature of having your face in that video, in that message, people consistently report higher response rates and engagement rates with those. And it's, it's partly because it's a more human message and people feel more inclined to watch it because they know it was sent just for them. It's partly because you put the effort into making them a video. And again, I think there's a psychological reaction to that of a greater expectation of value, right? This person spent the time to make me a short video. To me, when I'm receiving that, it often feels like they put a lot of extra work in here. They probably have something worthwhile to say, right? So your expectation of value is higher, feels more personal, feels authentic, and you're therefore more inclined to engage. And the real value then also comes from, once they do engage, they're more inclined to respond because you've connected with them as a real person. You're not just a cold email address anymore. You're a real human, right? And when they see you, they've seen you talk, they've gotten to know you in that 60 seconds, they often feel more inclined, even if that response is no thanks, right? You've at least gotten that, you've started the conversation, and that might be an opportunity to follow back on later, but you've made that brand impression. So that's a really interesting area. I've got a couple of other areas that I'll talk to, but curious from your perspective how you react to that, and what you think about that idea.
No, it makes complete sense, because I mean I have a neuroscience background. I majored in neuroscience at university, so I know that the brain, we process images and symbols at 60,000 times the speed that we do on text, because actually our brains are designed, they'll take a text and they translate it literally into a symbol, which then translates it back to the brain to figure out what it is. So that I totally understand. And we have psychologically this evolutionary principle around faces. You know, when we see faces, it's more appealing to us because we're able to make some form of a judgment whether this person's safe or not, right? Prejudices and things like that aside, this is just how our brains work. So this makes complete. What I was surprised to hear though was when you said at the prospecting side, because I initially thought that, or certainly from my experience is certainly not as great as yours in terms of using video, but I was surprised to see that sales using video at the very beginning conversation, the very first touch point, that would be effective. I thought it would have been a quick email with maybe an image, because I know images and graphs or statistics are very powerful, and then you can almost send a video as a follow-up to that. Right. What are you seeing? What's your insights? What's your data showing?
No, it's a great point because what we're seeing is the most successful reps are using videos during that outreach and prospecting stage, but not necessarily as the very first touch, right? So right. A lot of sellers are doing multiple communications to an individual to get their attention and spark that conversation. Right. And so what we very commonly see is a first email that might just be your sort of typical quick email that you can get out there and get in front of them in their inbox. And then they haven't responded, you connect on social or do some kind of social touch, or maybe you make that first phone call, and then you went to voicemail, and then the next touch is sending that video and going, right. Hey, Tyler from Vidyard here. I left you a voicemail, and I wanted to explain da-da-da-da-da, and if I would love for you to let me know what you think about this video, and I'm happy to send you another one to show you a bit more about what I just talked about. So I think using it at different places in your outreach cadence or sequence is a smart thing to do. Yes. But it doesn't have to be the very first message you put out there, but in many ways it can. So I think you've just got to think about your own communication style and how it is that you do that outreach. And then certainly once somebody does respond, so whether or not you've sent them a video yet, maybe you did your first email and they responded, I think a perfect way then to come back to them is with that quick video, right? Right. And we see that over and over again where it's, okay, yeah, this sounds interesting, happy to chat. And then instead of just sending them a calendar invite, actually replying back with a quick video, introducing yourself, right? So now again, you've built that rapport. And I consistently hear that reps who use video, once they started using video, have seen higher show rates to those calls and meetings, right? Which is a lot of those people who say, yeah, let's chat, and then you book a meeting. And then 10 minutes beforehand, they say, oh, sorry, I have to cancel, right? Or they don't show up. Right. That goes way down when the rep has followed up with a video, again, because you've created that personal connection. And it's a lot more difficult for them to then just brush you off, right? So there's different points there throughout your communication cycle where it can be very effective depending on what you're trying to accomplish. If it's to break through the noise, if it's to increase the show rates, or of course, after that, once you're in engaged conversation, lots of ways in which you can use video to recap a meeting you just had with them. Afterwards, send a quick video to summarize the key points, maybe even use a slide up on your screen with some bullets of, the key takeaways. But again, doing it visually, your earlier point on neuroscience, we not only process visuals faster, but they're more memorable to us, right? We store visual information in long-term memory, whereas we actually store text in short-term memory. Yeah. And so more memorable with those visuals. And I think that is, again, a key part to sales these days is being memorable, because they'll forget about you, moments after your conversation until you get back in front of them.
Yeah, that's super interesting, because I did a webinar around being more memorable, particularly in the virtual setting. This was a few weeks back, because I think it's very hard to measure this, but so far it's about 80 to 90% of what someone says or writes down or presents is forgotten within 2 days. Yeah. So it's really kind of what are you doing to become more memorable? So that's really interesting. Let's talk a bit more about the later stages of the sales cycle, because just the other day, I think it was 2 days ago, I sent a proposal to a potential client, and it was a long sales deck, 51 odd slides, because we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of stuff to discuss. But what I did was I added one of your videos. I created my own video as almost like a summary walkthrough. It was about 11 minutes, but it was a summary walkthrough of the salient points of the presentation. And I found that to be incredibly effective. Rather than go through each slide, I'm basically giving them an 11-minute talk around maybe top 5, maybe 8 of the most important slides that I absolutely want to make sure that they spend more of their time looking at. Talk to us about what you've seen in terms of the later stages, because although that might have worked for the proposal stage, my instinct says when you're working with procurement and legal, video may not be more as effective, but you might have data that says otherwise. So I really want to know and help people in line here. What are some of the things that you're seeing?
Well, it's super interesting, because as you progress, let's just sort of progress, linearly through the deal cycle. So we may have used video to get their attention. We now have used a couple of videos early in the buying process to build our rapport and become more memorable. And then, maybe at some point in the sales cycle, you need to demonstrate something, right? So if you're a product or technology company, you may be doing an online demo to them or something custom and so on. And, that again is a perfect opportunity for you to record and share a customized demo or show and tell, not just relying on like, hey, in a week from now, let's book a Zoom meeting and let's do a live demo. You can record and share a quick customized demo by doing a screen share, and you can have your face in the corner, right? And you can, again, if it's a browser-based app or something you sell, great, that's easy. If it's something you want to bring up some visuals to show, there's lots of ways to do it. And so that idea of creating and sending some kind of customized walkthrough is super effective, because not only for them is it like a really great experience, because they're like, wow, this person just sent me a custom demo that I can watch on my own time, right? I can watch
really
it at 2
important.
times speed. I can click around, right?
Yeah, that's really important.
As a potential buyer, it's a really good customer experience, because now I can do it on my own time, right? I can also forward it around to others on my team to quickly watch and get feedback on, right? Things that it's really hard to do when trying to schedule a live call. Not that you shouldn't still try to do those live meetings, but if you do those quick custom walkthroughs, they can expedite the sales process so fast, right? So much faster than waiting for the live meeting. And then they go, oh, we have 3 other people who want to see this. Let's book another meeting. And you're like 3 weeks out, and it's way harder. So that is a great use case as well. And then you move into the point you made of, okay, we're now at a point where we need to try to get them over the hump here on a buy decision. And when you create a proposal or a sales proposal, I love that idea. We see that a lot of people then they'll do, again, a screen recording with their face in the corner, and they'll bring up their slide deck or their proposal on the screen. They'll hit record, and they'll actually, again, talk through it, and they'll advance through the slides on their screen or whatever it happens, scroll through the PDF or the DocuSign, and they'll actually, again, contextualize and explain what it is that you're getting. And they'll use those times to re-emphasize what you said and agreed to as a customer, right? As we discussed in our sales process, you guys really have a need for this, and that's exactly what this part of the solution is intended to solve. You also mentioned this and expressed interest in this. That's why that's been included. And the cost is this, because we have great people like Evan, and then Evan pops in and says, hey guys, from our support team, who's going to help you with the onboarding and whatnot, right? And then it's like, quickly meet Evan. Hey, I'm Evan. I like long walks on the beach. Great. Go away, Evan, right? Like little things like that you can do. But again, you get to explain it. It's much more personal. You add the context. And most importantly is when that gets forwarded around to anybody else in the buying team, they get to hear your explanation of it. They're not relying on your champion there to try to explain things. Because then when the CFO asks your buyer and says, well, what's this? Why are we paying $20,000 for this? And then your poor buyer is like, right. So, and then they're trying to interpret. They're like, no. Watch minutes 3 through 4 of this video where the rep explains exactly what that thing does, right? And then they can just watch that part of the video and move on. So really cool example in lots of ways that you can use that to not only improve your selling, but make it easier on your buyer and empower your buyer to actually get that over the finish line.
I love that example that you just gave, because in the recession times or in tough times, buyers' behaviors just change completely. And one of the biggest ones is there are more stakeholders involved. And managing those stakeholders in normal times when we can go and see people face to face was hard enough as it is. But what you've just done, and now with virtual, it's brutally hard. And what you've just explained now is actually those stakeholders will get to see your face. Your champion, and this is something I advise my clients all the time, which is, who is your champion and how are you coaching them to present you internally? And the more you can control, and that was all about controlling that dialogue, controlling what they say. Now you've kind of almost taken back that control in a very big way. So I love that example that you just gave, because that's going to help immensely with companies that have quite complex solutions or products to sell. What about the later stages? Because I want to spend a bit of time in a moment just talking about the buyer side, the personality, the human side of things from both the seller and the buyer.
Yeah.
But what about the later stages? Do you have any data or insights that talks about whether video is as effective at, say, the what do you call it, the procurement, the legal, that kind of contract T's and C's element, and the later stages? Do you have any insights on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything quantitative to prove one way or the other, but what I will share is I absolutely hear anecdotal stories from our successful users and our own sales team, who certainly do continue to use it in those stages, because again, during those, crucial back and forths with procurement, with legal and so on, there's a couple of things that can happen. One thing that can happen is they start to dislike you and have a bias because you're going back and forth. They're asking for something, you're struggling to get it back. And often those can actually cause conflict and negative relationships, which can impact your ability to get it over the line, right?
For sure.
If you make an enemy in their legal team, your chances of getting it signed, you go down their priority list. So little things like that, where you can, just like empowering your buyer is empowering those people to move quickly and make the right decisions. So for example, when you send over red lines, or they send you red lines to the contract, and then you're going to send something back, right? What either happens in most cases today is your legal team makes a bunch of red lines or comments and then just sends it back, and they're left to have to interpret why they did what they did. Yeah. Or everybody hops on a call and they talk through it and try to come to some form of resolution. But often that call, again, it takes 2 weeks to get it booked because lawyers are all busy, and 2 of them have kids at home that they can't, find a time. But there's all these challenges. So just again, play it through and say, what if our legal team, when they were going through the red lines, or me as a rep, what if we then recorded a quick video explaining our responses? So we can add comments in there, we can put in our own red lines, and then we record a quick video just like the proposal, to walk through the contract visually and say, okay, so this one here, this is why we've changed the language the way that we did. And this is the impact on us, and we believe on you. And this is exactly why, right? As opposed to trying to write a big long comment that is up for interpretation. So there's things like that, again, you can just talk through it, explain it. And that also, again, helps build that rapport, because now they're seeing the real people, right? They're like, yeah, this is another lawyer just like me. It's not a faceless email address. And again, I think those little things just go a long way, especially in today's digital world where we're not seeing a lot of other people at work. I honestly think that those little ideas of, I could explain it more clearly, I could put somebody's face on camera, and those 2 things together just maximize your chances of moving it forward. Play there, absolutely. You again, think about anytime you're trying to communicate something back and forth, could a visual or having me explain it on camera help move things forward? And often the answer is yes. You just got to be creative.
Yeah, and you're saying 4 things that's kind of music to my ears here, which is, video is basically how, if you use it well, it can increase engagement, you can become more memorable, you're accelerating the sales cycle, and you're increasing your conversion rates, right? So those are kind of the 4 magic things that every salesperson is probably really want to do. So that's fantastic. So I want to change speed just a little bit and talk about the buyer's perspective. And I don't want to disencourage anyone to not try based upon someone's personality. I think they should absolutely try video. They should really just get used to it. Yep. But I do want people to be aware of the person that they talk to. And that's a core part of some of the discussions I have with my clients. So if we look at the Merrill-Reed framework, the psychology framework, you have the drivers, you've got the analytical people, you've got people who are very expressive, and you have amiables. Have you seen anything or observed anything around, some, I don't want to say characters because we don't want to label people, but let's just say job roles, right? So if you've got a head of R&D or a head of IT or a head of sales, marketing, are you seeing some type of professions respond more to video than others? What are you seeing right now?
Yeah, it's a super interesting question, and we get we hear a lot of users who, will struggle in certain industries. For example, if it's a very
Right.
security conscious industry, they may be
Yes.
less inclined to click on things, and if it's again more of a traditional industry, they may feel like, oh, these videos, like this isn't for me, right? Like this isn't the way I do business. But the reality is, I hear time and time again that people don't really find that, and it's the extreme fringe cases
Wow.
that actually is a
Okay.
reality. And what I do encourage you to think about is, the way that you deliver your message,
Yes.
the tonality, just again the visual approach. Those things, I think you should try to adapt to your buyer, depending on their role, or if you've actually met them before, their communication style, and so on. There are some people, I communicate a lot with other marketers, and I know most other marketers, they appreciate and thrive on fun and creativity and these sorts of things, right? So usually my videos to folks in that space, they're bursting with energy. I'm like, doing something maybe a little bit funny to catch a laugh. I'm trying to be really hyper personal, and as interesting as I can. When I'm communicating to somebody in more of a technical role, I will certainly adapt my style, right? And I will focus
Yeah.
on it a little bit quicker, more informational, to the point, probably have a supporting visual, right? That's something that, because, they may not be looking as much for the value of my information. Just again, where you are in the sales cycle, and the level of relationship you have with them. The more familiar you are with each other, of course, the more liberty it gives you to be more casual, to to send a quick video over saying, hey, happy 4th of July, da 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 da, right? Like just
Yeah.
casual, sort of fun or personal things. Once you start getting engaged, you can do those sorts of things. If it's a cold prospect, probably not, right? It might be a little bit weird for me to do something like that, but again, it's those are some ideas on how you can adapt your styles to the expectations of your audience.
Yeah. So it's not so much the video and the medium and who you're talking to. It's just a tool, right? It's just how you're coming across. So do you still talk the language of that personality that you're speaking to? That's basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another example, we see cases where, again, you're going through the sales process, and maybe now you need to communicate something to, or nudge, an executive. Like, say you're selling to a manager, and that they need to get buy-in from their VP or whatever it happens to be. And again, a great opportunity there is for you to record a quick video, address a case where you're trying to deliver a message to them. And you might send it to your champion and say, hey, would you mind forwarding this on to your VP?
Yeah.
And then you can watch it or see what I'm saying and forward it along. But I want to make sure they know why I believe we can help them, and so on. And again, in that case, you're going to record a video. But if you're sending it to a VP, you're going to keep it short. Number one,
Yeah.
short, right?
Yeah.
They don't have time to get into the weeds. They don't want to know every feature and function. They just want, something, that's really, quick and important, and benefits oriented. So you're going to do something quick. Again, you're probably going to do something fairly direct to let them know, hey, first want to introduce myself. But most importantly, just really quickly here, 30 seconds or 60 seconds, I want to explain this one thing that we're doing and how it's going to help you, blah, 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 blah. That's it. Thanks so much. And I'm happy to take of somebody in that role. They're not going to watch a 10-minute or 20-minute demo.
Yeah.
At level.
Yeah. That's super interesting. So let's talk about the seller side, right? So some salespeople may not be comfortable with video. They might say, "Oh, the camera's too close to my face. I don't like that." I don't. What do you say to some of the sellers out there that might be a bit uncomfortable with posting a lot of videos and sharing a lot of videos to their prospects or their clients, whoever they might be? What some of the advice do you have there?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the big things I often, challenge them with is to think back to if they did, when they started doing something new, like cold calling, or, face-to-face meetings, or maybe they did door-to-door sales at some point, right?
Yeah.
When they started off doing those things, I guarantee it was super uncomfortable. They didn't like doing it. It felt hard and inefficient. And eventually, after enough reps, right, it became part of their pattern, right? They became like it's like the first time you do it is the worst and the last time you do it is the best. And the same is true of video. And if you really believe that as a seller, your personality, your communication, the relationships you're building are of the most important, right? If those are important, then I think it'd be hard to argue that using video, you can get that, right? And it's not just Zoom calls. I can record and send videos. There's all these ways that I can use it.
Yeah.
If you commit to that and you say, this has to be part of the way I sell, and then you focus on doing it, right? And you practice and you keep at it. And again, I guarantee you, like every day, it gets a little bit more natural and you get a little bit better. And there's little things you can do as well, like saying, look, if the environment you're in isn't conducive to recording and sending a video you feel good about, then change that.
Absolutely.
Right? We were chatting at the very beginning of this. I've done the same thing. I used to have a bed in the background in my home office here. It was a spare bedroom. I had, windows were in the wrong spot. And you know what? I'm going to fix this. And I moved my desk. I bought myself a little ring light to give me better lighting. I've got a Yeti mic for my microphone. I've gotten myself in, and I put, some things behind me, and I've gotten into an environment where I now really enjoy making videos because I feel good about it, right? I'm like, I know my audio is going to be good. I got a new webcam. It's great, right? And I feel confident doing it. And I'm in a space where I know I'm not going to have a kid run behind me, and although sometimes that's fun, to have a video.
We remember that video with that. Yeah, exactly.
But I think that just like practice makes perfect, like anything. Have an environment you feel good about creating video in, and then also think about different ways and styles that you can use video. So we talked about how, like with a tool like Vidyard, you can record yourself on webcam, so you're the star of the show. And when you send it over, it's a webcam with you on it. You can also, though, do a screen share with your face just down in the corner in a little circle.
Yes.
And that, you're no longer the star of the show, right? Whatever's on your screen is the star of the show. And that, for some people, is a nice way for them to get a little bit more comfortable doing it, because now they can refer to visuals. They don't feel like, they have to, their face is a, full front center. So that's another nice way. You could start by sending more screen share style videos just to get more comfortable as you go. And think about how, you could have a visual up on the screen to pique their interest and to communicate your message.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's some great advice there, because I think most people don't help themselves by changing the environment. They just think, well, you know what, I'm not good at video, but actually there's a lot about your environment that you can change. So we've talked about the buyers, we talked about the sellers. I'm really interested to know, have you observed or heard from clients or the people that you talk to about buyers who start to respond with videos when they probably never used to? Are you starting to see that?
Yeah, I don't think it happens as often as I would like to see, but I was just talking to an account executive 2 days ago that reached out to me because he's like, I've been using video for the last year. It's totally changed the way I sell. Would love to chat with you just to pick your brain. And so we had a really fun conversation, and, he shared a couple of really great stories. And one was, he had been using it at a different company in the past, and then he joined a new organization about 7 weeks ago. Yeah. And he told me the story, which is what had originally prompted him to reach out. And he told me the story where, so he had joined the team, and there were other folks on his team that were trying to break into this specific account, and they couldn't get a response. And so he was the new guy, and he said, you know what, I got this, give me a shot. And he recorded a video of himself on camera delivering his message, a 60-second or so video, and sent it over to the lead prospect there. And the person replied back within, he said, less than a day, he got a response. And the first line of the response was, holy cow, that was awesome. You guys are always, being super innovative, right? And then below it was a quick video where that person then actually responded and said, thanks for your video. I thought I should reply with a video as well to introduce myself. Thought that was a great way to start the conversation.
Really interesting.
And, I hear that all the time of like people responding and just partly it's like, wow, this was really creative and interesting. You've proven you're willing to go the extra mile. Let's talk, right? I hear that all the time. And every once in a while, you do see somebody reply with a video, and that's when you've got them, right? Like if they reply with a video, like that's your deal to lose. Like you got them.
Yeah, that is really, really interesting to hear. Really, and super cool as well to hear that, because I think I think that's when you know you've really got them engaged then, because if they're kind of responding the same as you, you've created that kind of NLP rapport, sorry. So that's really cool. One question I forgot to ask you, Tyler, which is, you can create an amazing video from what you've just shared with us, and it's what you just shared is gold. You can have the right kind of length of video; it's under 1 minute. Say at the prospecting stage, you're presenting something, you're doing all the right things, but you still got to get the recipient to want to click on the video, because some people might just look at that and go, oh, he or she's just finding another way to engage me. I'm not going to waste any time. You probably can't even tell whether it's a 1 minute video or a 5 minute video.
Right.
And most buyers or senior executives will think, you know what, this person's going to waste my time.
Right.
I saw something on your website that was really cool, where you showed some examples of great videos, and especially the thumbnails. Talk to us about how you can structure your thumbnail, or any other things around how to get the recipient to want to click those videos.
I'm so glad you asked that, because you're right. You put in the effort and you send the video, and then it's like heartbreaking when they
oh no, yeah.
So there's absolutely a number of things you can do, and what I would absolutely encourage any of you sellers out there to explicitly do when you're crafting the message that leads into it and thinking about the thumbnail image and all those things that it starts with, is to ask yourself, so first you ask yourself, why would this person watch this video if they got this message? Right? Like, what am I doing to make them want to watch this? But then also ask yourself, why wouldn't they watch this video, right? And you brought up some of those objections that people will often go through, right? And explicitly, like, ask yourself that. Put yourself in the shoes of a buyer. Pull in your spouse or a friend or whatever. Show it to them and go, what would stop you from watching this video, right? And they might say, and you might come up with ideas like, well, I don't know, like, I don't have time to watch a 30-minute video. And you're like, okay, fear of length is too much, right?
Yeah.
This isn't, this is probably the same video you sent to 1,000 other people, right? Okay, so it's got to be, make sure it's personal and it's clear that I made it just for them. It's not clear why I'm clicking on it. Well, I could probably solve that with the sentence leading into the video. So you've got basically 3 things in your message that can maximize the watch rate. So first is the subject line of your message in the first place. And what I've heard some others repeatedly say is that the best subject line that they have success with is something that says, if I was prospecting, like let's say I was prospecting you, Moeed, or maybe you're a customer of mine I'm working with, is a subject line that would say, Moeed plus Tyler, pipe video for you, or whatever it happens, or my company name plus your company name, a video for you, right? And something like that, where it's like really clear that this is a personal thing. It has the word video, or made you this quick video, or something like that. So that's a really effective subject line, but you can try other things. An introductory sentence, right, which leads into, because if it's just a video, they're not going to click, because they're going to be like, I don't know what to expect here. I don't have time for this. So you need a first introduction. And that's where you want to really quickly and clearly explain that. Made you a quick video for reason A, B, C. Would love your feedback. Don't make that too long though, right? Make it like you want them to watch the video. You don't want them to read all the bullet points and be like, oh, here's a summary of what I said in the video. Well, you lost the point, right? So keep it quick, but also call out things like the length, right? I always say, I made you this short, 60-second video to answer this question or to introduce yourself. And then I often will end with, would love your feedback on the video. Let me know what you think, right? Is a great sort of, call to action afterwards. So the subject, the introductory sentences or sentence, and then the thumbnail image of the video. Again, with a tool like Vidyard, you can have the thumbnail image added right into the message so they see it. Now that can either be a static image or it can be a looping animated GIF. So you can actually make it like a 3-second looping GIF as well. Adding the motion may help, and because it draws attention, our eyes go to the motion, they can tell it's a video. That can sometimes help. The other things are Make sure your face is in that in the thumbnail image. And then also think about anything else you can do to make sure they can visually immediately see that this was made just for them, right? So again, if I were sending you a video and I might, grab my little pad of paper here.
Yeah, I saw that. Right? I saw that someone had written, Tyler, click this, or open me. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah.
Got something great to talk about, right? And I hold that up here, and when I hit record, I'm planning that my first scene is going to be the thumbnail image. And so then again, when you get that in the message, you can see very clearly that this was made just for you. And again, it heightens your expectation of value. So now seeing all this, you've broken down those barriers. I know it's less than 60 seconds of my time. I know what it's about and what to expect out of it. And I can tell that they made this just for me, right? Yeah. Those things all together will absolutely accelerate and catalyze more people to watch the videos.
So get an understanding of what could what could prevent someone from opening that. So is it time, length? Basically address those objections. Like any good objection handling, if you address them before the buyer addresses it, you're knocking it out of the park before they've even had that. So that's awesome. Yeah, I can feel people online taking a ton of notes because this is really valuable stuff. We got a question that came in from David, and I'm glad he asked this question because it's one that I've had whenever I talk about video, and I'm sure you get, which is so he asked, does it help to establish a house style across the sales team of the same company, or should they always try to be individual? So I guess he's asking, do you kind of not dictate, but do you have a playbook around how you create those videos that everyone should adhere to, some best practices, or do you kind of allow people to be more individual about it? What are your thoughts there?
So it's a great question, David. And as you might expect, the answer is a little from column A and a little from column B.
You're going to say that.
So if you're using a tool like Vidyard, for an example, any rep on your team can use the free version, start recording and sending videos. But in those cases, you as a business aren't going to have any control over the branding of the videos and the playback experience. But we then have a Teams product. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to sell you on Vidyard, honestly. I'm just trying to explain how it can work for a team.
Of course, no, of course.
But when you have a Teams edition of it, first of all, you can manage the playback experience across all of your sales reps so that when somebody clicks on a video from one of your reps and it plays back on a page, that page is branded for your business. So you as a business have some control there. So it looks like it's a video playing back on your company website. It's got your logo. You can control a call to action below the videos. So if you want to have something in there, so you have some control there. And I think that's one thing you do want to think about. So it at least is the branding experience across your team to be consistent and aligned with company standards. Beyond that, my recommendation is to coach and provide ideas and guidance to your reps on how to use video, examples at different points in the sales cycle, right? As well as some different styles of messaging they could be using, much like you would coach them on emails and phone calls. However, unlike those, it shouldn't be a copy paste for every rep, right? I would urge you not to give them a script to read on camera. Not only will it make them less natural and less human, I think it just ends up being not as a great experience. And it also limits their creativity, which video can be a creative medium, and those who grasp that can really thrive. So
it's the same as cold calls, right? I mean, if you can hear straight away if someone's on a script and a cold call, you're like, you know what? I'm just not going to listen anymore. Let's just get you off the phone. So yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think you absolutely, will get value out of providing guidance, ideas,
agreed.
Examples, and templates. Because otherwise, because it's new, they won't know what to do with it, right? And so I think some of the examples we talked about here, right? Internally in the team, you could have a rep record an example of a prospecting video like this, an example of another video like this, an example of a video walking through a sales proposal, right? And then share those around the team as examples, as templates, as guidelines.
Yeah, I like that.
Do something similar, but to make it their own and to, get a little bit creative with it as well.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think what other people could probably think about is, with your platform, what's great is that you can actually track and see the performance of those videos. So you as management can actually, and even as a seller, you can test out to see, well, what style works versus what others don't. So how long are they watching those videos? what's the click-through rate, etc., things like that. So you can really kind of become the master and control your own destiny in that way. And you can see which one works versus which one doesn't. So that's super interesting.
And I was going to say it, and time again, much like adopting any other new sales tool or methodology, we see that, most sales teams will, roll it out to a handful of people, and they'll find one or two people that really glob onto it and, become really successful with it. And they become the internal champion in the team. And instead of having the leadership team push it down to all the other reps and say, thou shalt do videos and thou shalt do them this way, getting a champion internally, and then having them become your, the person who trains the other reps, shows them ideas, bounces feedback back and forth off each other. That goes such a long way when they see one of their peers using it well, and having that person, again, coach and support other people. So find that champion even in your own team that you think could do well and see success with it, and then have them help you create those templates and educate the rest of the team.
Yeah, that's great. And we got another question from Jenny. And this is something I raised right at the beginning, actually, which is, I work at a company where, the client base is, on average 50, 65, and they work in a traditional audience. So this could be a very conservative industry or a highly regulated industry like the banking industry, oil and gas, etc. So do you have any tips on how to engage with an audience via video for this age group in comparison to, say, a younger audience? Great question, Jim.
It's a great question. I think it's actually super interesting. What we've sort of seen play out in the market is that, the younger generation, right, they're used to social, they're used to all these things. And for them, they sort of associate it with their personal life and things like that. With, older demographics, what we've tended to find is that they tend to be the people that have greater, that value personal relationships in business, right?
Yes.
Younger people tend to be much more transactional in business. Older people tend to have been, through their career where a lot of it was about relationships and
absolutely.
So I think you can really play that up when you're catering to that audience and use the videos as a way, number one, to build that relationship, to talk to them, right? To make them feel comfortable with working with you as an individual, and even less so using it to pitch your ideas or to show a demo or something, right? With those people, honestly, I think sending a video where you go and you say, hey, I really want to introduce myself because I think we could, really help you out. And I wanted to get to know you. I wanted you to get to know me a bit better, right?
Yeah.
And for that age demographic, it's a home run. Like they'll be like, oh, wow, great. Let's meet this person, right? Like this is how I used to do business. This is great. So I think play up that relationship angle with that demographic. And if you are in areas that might be regulated or, again, a little bit more resistant to technology, is to, again, use your introductions to the videos to be really clear. Say, hey, you know what? I made you this video because I really wanted to introduce myself, and I thought you'd appreciate it. It's something I made just for you. It's under 60 seconds. Include the thumbnail image so they can tell you're actually in the video. So
exactly,
it's clickbait or something. And again, I think those little things can actually work really well and might surprise you how many people are open to that idea of watching videos, even though it's not something they've traditionally done.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you focus on at the end of the day, right? If you're focusing on the fact that this is technology and people of that demographic are not comfortable with technology, well, I guarantee you they're probably watching YouTube videos, for example. So they're familiar with clicking on a thumbnail. But exactly as you said, right? Rather than focus on what they may not like, focus on what generation they come from. And they're all about doing business on the golf course, seeing people. Being able to have that one-on-one engagement with them. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think they would, and I've seen this myself, where they just respond to video far better than text because at the end of the day, they're human, right? So their brain is designed to filter out the normal or filter out the things that they're used to, right? So video will get their attention, which is what you really want.
Yeah, and the younger people will reply to your video saying, yeah, that's great, send me something else and I'll look at it off time. The older demographic will reply to your video saying, this was great, let's hop on a call to talk more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've done the thing that you need, which is get their attention, get a response. Right. And as you say, it's yours to lose. Yeah, that's fantastic. This has been really cool. So one last thing I wanted to ask you, which is we've talked about all the great things that you should do. Do you have any points around things that a seller absolutely must avoid doing? Because and have seen that these 3 things, for example, are going to kill any chances of your video being watched or responded to.
Yeah. So a couple of quick things. One is be very mindful of the length of your videos. You know, I see definitely a death sentence is to send a 7-minute long walkthrough of everything you do as a cold outreach to a prospect.
Yes.
So plan ahead, right? Like don't go into it and just freestyle. Plan ahead so you know what you're going to say, you know what you're going to go, and that's going to help you keep it tight and be respectful of their time. That's number one. Number two is don't try to be something that you're not, right?
Right.
You know, let your genuine personality and communication style come through in video. It is a very visual medium. It gives you that opportunity. But if you're not a high energy hand waver, don't try to force yourself to be that. It's just not going to work. And so I encourage people to think about, like, how do you embrace your own communication style? How do you embrace your own superpower, right? And make it come through on video. For example, if you're, you know, again, if you're a very fun, creative person and you want to like put on a weird hat and something to get people's attention, go for it, right? Like if that's you, own it and do it. If you're an introvert and, you know, first of all, the camera scares you and you don't really want to do this, then use a screen share, right? Present information logically like you normally would. And maybe your superpower is your ability to articulate information clearly, quickly, get to that point of value, right? Embrace that. So think about that, make it your own, and don't feel like you have to be something you're not just because the camera is on.
Yeah.
And then the very last point I will advise is it's more about, you know, how to do it right, which is just be natural and keep it conversational, right? No matter how formal it is, whether it's a CEO or, you know, whoever it is you're reaching out to, still, this is a conversational medium. It's a human medium. Don't feel like you have to be scripted and formal. Just communicate like you would if you were talking to them on the golf course or in the pub or whatever it happens to be. And I think that'll go such a long way to making you natural and to making them want to get to know you better.
So be mindful of time. Don't make it too long, obviously in context. Be yourself, let your personality shine. And then the final one is just act natural. Don't make it conversational. Don't make it too formal. Otherwise, you're not going to really get that engagement back. Did I catch all of it?
Love it. Yes. Thank you for the summary. It's perfect.
Yeah, this has been super helpful. And you know, I hope this has been super helpful for everyone else as well. And there's a ton of notes. I mean, you know, I took a ton of notes anyway. And luckily this is recorded, so I'm going to be able to watch it again. So thank you, Tyler, for taking the time and sharing your best practices and some advice here for sellers. The only advice I would leave for those watching this is it's going to be uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to it. But as Tyler said, like everything else, you know, cold calling, you know, negotiating, you know, all these things were uncomfortable at some stage, but you practiced, and you broke through it. And I think you have to take the mindset that this is going to have to be one of the major tools that you use for sales. So once you get over that and say this has got to be the case, it's no longer an option, it's a must, then you will then you will ensure that you practice and get comfortable with it. But give it a shot, right? Play around with it. Do what's comfortable for you first. Focus on what you would like to do with video versus trying to be perfect and trying to be an amazing presenter. That's not your way. And then once you've tackled those things that you're comfortable with and you feel good with, then you can start getting to the more difficult ones. But by then you've built up some sort of competency and you've built up some sort of confidence as well in that process. So yeah, super, super helpful, Tyler. And thank you for sharing what you did with everyone.
No, that's great. Yeah, you perfect advice. Thank you again so much for having me. And you know, folks, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Tyler Lessard at Vidyard. You know, send me a message if you have any questions you want to ask or advice for your team. You know, always happy to share insights, and I work with a lot of different individuals and businesses on how they're using this.
Yeah.
So happy to share more there and point you to other resources on our website that we have an inspiration library with tons of examples. We have you know, cheat sheets and tools. So happy to point you to any of those things. So just, yeah, please feel free to follow up.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how can people connect with you? So LinkedIn and then vidyard.com. So short for video, and then yard like schoolyard. So vidyard.com, right?
Sure.
Yeah, great. Tyler, thank you very much. Everyone, happy hunting, happy selling, and you know, get used to video. Practice it on your friends and loved ones first, maybe if you want to, but happy hunting. Thank you very much, Tyler.
Lights, camera, action.
There we go. Take care. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye for now.